There has been a lot of developments this week concerning this young lad who, until this week, we didn't have a name. We didn't have a face. This was a young boy who has been missing and disappeared for several years now from the Dublin area, from the Donabate area. I've covered this story several times over the last few weeks when it first broke. This child was only discovered as being missing when the mother, I believe, was attempting to make benefit claims relating to this child. And that is what triggered an investigation, because the child hadn't even been registered for school. And if he was still alive today, he would be 7 or 8 years of age. So this is a photograph of the boy. His name was Daniel. And this is the only photographs we have of him when he was younger and when he was a baby. When he was just born, he was given up for adoption and taken by Tusla, the so-called Child Protection Agency for Ireland. The parents then decided they wanted him back again after a period of time. They were given back to the parents again, and then nothing was seen or heard from the child again for several years. And welcome everyone to the live stream. If you're in the live stream, I'm just focusing in on this story here today. So if you can, please leave your comments in relation to this story and also some of the other scandalous stories that are breaking. I'm going to cover them briefly over the next 30 or 40 minutes. With the death of young Harvey, his parents, I believe, are due to appear tonight on the late show. So that will get publicity for that case. And I believe at the point of recording this, and this is recorded live, this is Friday afternoon, Simon Harris still has yet to meet up with, as promised, the parents of that young lad, Harvey, who died, as I believe, a result of scoliosis. He died a long, slow, painful death. And after many years of neglect and broken promises, primarily from the mouth of the current Taoiseach, Simon Harris. So please leave your thoughts and comments on this. Just focusing on these kids today on this live stream. Thank you for your comments here. It's tragic. Vaughan Malone says no one is held accountable. Also, Kieran Durnan, the parents are responsible, you say. Cheeky Chappie describes Simon Harris as being a disgusting man. Indeed he is, and I don't think there's too many people would disagree with you on that particular assessment. So this boy in question, they have been digging up an area of open ground all week, and for several weeks now. They've been investigating an area of ground that I believe the mother put them in the direction of. She's still in Ireland. She's an African of African descent. The father, if you want to call him a father, left a long time ago and moved to Brazil, and he apparently has been assisting Garda Síochána with their investigation by video calls, because he doesn't want to, or he can't, or he won't return back to Ireland to assist. You would think if this was your child, that you'd be on the first plane back to try and assist whatever way you could, to try and understand a little bit more about what's happening. But no, apparently he's not coming back at this point in time. I want to show some of the comments here that are being made. Someone can correct me, but didn't Roderick O'Gorman try to destroy records because of the failures of Tusla while he was Minister for Children? Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I can't quote you and say that that's true, but I'm not going to say that it's untrue either. I've read other reports of that today. Nikki Cyprus says, God bless these children. There will probably be no justice for them in this life, but the Lord says vengeance is his. Amen. Nikki, 100%. Some of these children are already past. Some of them are still living in a lot of pain and still being neglected. The figures for Tusla are shocking. The amount of children that have died over the last 10 years, I believe it is, under the so-called care of Tusla is running into the hundreds. Hundreds either dead or missing. Hundreds we're talking about, not one or two isolated incidents, but hundreds. Those in government are shameful and a disgrace and an embarrassment to Ireland. 100%. 100%. Geraldine McGurk, thank you for the comment. Geraldine, she says that baby looks like he's pleading for help me. Maybe he is. I believe, Geraldine, what happened was that the child was given up for adoption, and the adoptive parents loved the child very much. They took these photographs, okay, but the young lad, he was only maybe a year or two old or whatever age he was when this photograph was taken. He was looked after well, I believe, by his adoptive parents, and then he was given back into the care of Tusla because his so-called natural parents wanted him back again, so they got him back again. So that's where this still photograph is taken from. So like I said, the mother led the investigators to a piece of open waste ground in a public area, and there has been digging and searching going on, cadaver dogs being brought in, diggers being brought in, and I believe the child's remains were discovered, and a post-mortem is underway to try and determine whether or not he died of natural causes or whether or not there was foul play afoot. Sorry for my pronunciation there. So I've seen already also reports are saying that there are partial remains in this shallow grave for this young boy, shallow grave, partial remains, and they've said that because of the exposure to the elements over such a long period of time, they may not be able to decide what the actual cause of death is. But there's so many questions need to be answered in and around this case. This one cannot go away. The amount of attention that it's gathering already, plus a big push for an investigation into Tusla, where they're going back and looking at so-called closed cases that go back for years now. They're running into something like 42,000 reviews on closed cases that were closed over the last 5 years. It's insane. It's completely mad. So yesterday, whenever the news broke, of course, politicians came out and they claimed that they were so sad and so cut about this and how it was a terrible tragedy. Most of them, by the way, have been spending the last few days at a ploughing competition, boosting their presidential nominees also, ploughing competition, attended by hundreds of thousands of people. And in between his sorrow and his touting for his presidential candidate, Micheál Martin, here pictured at said ploughing competition with a huge ice cream cone, and pictured beside his little chihuahua, Jim, who he's pushing forward as a presidential nominee, and he doesn't like to see him speaking for himself. He likes to keep him on a very short leash, at least so far anyway. So I'm looking at some of the comments in the live chat, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining, by the way. Just thought I would stream this one out live rather than put it all together and upload videos. Just thought maybe some of you folk would want to have your say in this one too, and many people are. So I want to look at some of the comments. Sean says Tusla are farming out care contracts for vulnerable children to organizations with zero background checks, Agape Care, for example. Yes, indeed, there have been many scandals in and around contracts that have been awarded, lack of vetting in and around people that have been working in that organization or contracting out to that organization. How they have managed to go on for so long is, you tell me, folks, how has this managed to continue for so long? Uh, I knew a girl that lost a child to cut death. She was so devastated, her hair completely fell out and she ended up having to be hospitalized. I'm very sorry to hear that. This is it. This is it. It's horrendous when you hear about a kid dying. It's bad enough, but for this little lad, they've been dead for years and then buried in a shallow grave and completely neglected by the Irish state in terms of the childcare. Just basically, period. He was neglected and buried, and now he's been found, dug up, partial remains now to be post mortem. And here we are, sadly, talking about him in this stream here tonight. Elizabeth Houston, thank you, Elizabeth, for your comment. Says shamefully outrageous. Tusla has to be investigated. How is this allowed to happen? To go on, the suffering of little children. Well, again, that's the question that I'm asking. I'm asking you people. I mean, I'm trying to comprehend this myself. I'm trying to make head nor tail of this myself. How can this be allowed to go on? How can this be allowed to continue? That's a very, very good question. Joe Blogg says, minister friend with nice pensionable jobs. That is how. Political failures. Well, I'm not going to argue with that one, Joe, at all. You've got to ask yourself who's scratching whose back and what envelopes are being passed around for these people to remain in situ with the woeful track record that they have in a wake behind them. And before we move on to a video clip of this, Nikki says again, these evil monsters prey on the most vulnerable of society, on the children and on the elderly. They do. And there's a quote off the top of my head. I'm not sure who I can attribute it to, but it's along the lines of, you can judge any society at all ever by the way that it treats its elderly, its sick, and its most vulnerable, or its children. So with that quote in mind, how would Ireland's government, Ireland's healthcare system for sick and children that are in chronic pain, and the elderly and the vulnerable, how would it hold up? How would it hold up? And just one more comment here. Nunya Business says, protect our most vulnerable. Indeed, we need to protect our most vulnerable, but they're not being protected. If it was in our hands, I have no doubt that would be the case. They would be safe, they would be protected, but they're not in our hands, sadly, as in children outside of our own families and our own circles. Children like this most certainly are being failed. Interesting comment from Sean. Partial remains would indicate a ritual killing of a child accused of witchcraft or possession. This is a very common thing in Africa. It is in some parts, Sean. In some parts, yes. There was a part of Africa that I frequented a lot for a period of about 10 years in the western province of Kenya, with a group of people, although it was in Tanzania as well. There is a lot of superstition there, and children that were born with congenital birth defects like clubfoot, spina bifida, cleft palate, albinism, if they were born as albinos, were looked upon by some parents and by some communities as being cursed, and those children would have been left to die. And actually, and I have firsthand accounts of this from people in the areas, they would have been taken out under cover of darkness and buried away from anyone's sight. So I can't say that this is what's happened here. Obviously, the powers that be are very keen to make sure that Garda Síochána are allowed to slowly and methodically assess what's been going on here, which seems to be extremely convenient. The bottom line is questions need to be answered, and they need to be answered fast. So there's a headline to do with Tusla. They're to conduct welfare checks for 42,000 closed cases. Let me say that again, 42,000 closed cases on Tusla's books, not one or two, 10 or 20. It would have been bad enough, don't you think, if that would have been 500? Wouldn't it have been horrendous if that would have been 1,000 closed cases? 42,000 closed cases. Tusla are to reopen the books to conduct so-called welfare checks. 42,000. What would you get in Croke Park for an All-Ireland final? 80,000. So think about that in terms of numbers. It's like a huge concert. Only everybody that's in the concert, instead of being spectators and watching a band, it's a missing child or a child that has a question mark beside their name, that are on Tusla's books. Tusla has revised the number of children whose cases were closed due to the so-called COVID-19 pandemic and are subject to a well-being check to over 42,000. The agency confirmed that the provisional number of children encompassed by the checks is now 42,500. 42,500. A spokesperson said it was working closely with the Department of Children, Disability and Equality to determine the scope, process and required resources to conduct checks on cases closed during the COVID-19 period. Like, where are they going to get if they can't even monitor and track children that are alive in their care? How are they ever going to resource an investigation or at least a check on 42,000 plus kids? And this number, I believe, is rising. This number is rising. It was somewhere around 39,000 a few days ago. Then it hit the 40,000 mark, and now it's 42,000. In fact, it says over 42,000. It's pushing up towards 43,000. 43,000 children. 43,000. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm genuinely blown away by the amount of cases that they're having to revisit here. I just can't get my head around the fact that it's pushing up to 50K. Bill O'Dowd says, no one will be held accountable. I'm not going to argue with you there, Philip, at all. I'm not going to argue with you for the simple reason that I've yet to see anyone arrested, questioned, charged, or go to prison for any of the heinous acts that have been carried out on various groups of the population over the last few years. I've yet to see anyone. Quote, lessons will be learned. Yeah, that'll be the thing. We've learned lessons. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that this doesn't happen again. This doesn't be happening again. So that's what they're going to say. That's what we're going to say. There's probably people who are not completely evil in these organizations. Yes, Nikki, I'm talking, when I talk about the organization, I'm talking about the organization on a blanket level. So yeah, some people are just there trying to do their job, but the people that are in senior positions most definitely do know what's going on a heck of a lot better than the people at the lower levels, and they're briefed on things without a doubt. And then, of course, the so-called Norma Foley, Minister for Children, she's heading up the show. It's pretty hard to believe. It's pretty hard to believe. Something to do with me attending a SawCon this year in December. Don't know anything about that. Certainly haven't been invited to it. I'm one of these loners that likes to keep himself to himself for one reason or another. So anyway, on topic here, 43,000. They'll never be able to conduct welfare checks on that number, not even a tenth. Sean, I would say they'll struggle to commit checks on even a hundredth of that. A hundredth of that is 430. That would have been enough in and of itself. Would have been enough in and of itself. So someone else, Elizabeth Houston, has said, I cannot believe this is real. It's worse than a horror movie. Indeed, it is. Now, I want to move on to a little video clip that has been put out about this story, just to give you a full update on it as we're listening right now, and some of the comments that are being made in this little news clip as it's being played. You can leave a comment here, and also I may pause it and go into some details, and then we're going to move on to some of the other stuff that's been happening in terms of child neglect with healthcare over the space of the last few days. So this is an article that was published up here today.
Found on a site in Donabate in North County Dublin, which are believed to be those of Daniel Arabosa. The young boy had been missing for 4 years and the remains were removed from the site last night. Well, our news correspondent Richard Chambers is at Garda headquarters for us this lunchtime and joins us now. So Richard, the post-mortem and the attempts to try to establish a cause of death here, they're going to take some time.
Yeah, that's right, Colette, and there's a couple of reasons for that which we'll get through, the chief amongst which is the complexity, the intricacy of this investigation. The major substantive work has now concluded at the search site in Donabate. That has been painstaking work over the last almost 3 weeks now by Gardaí, who wanted to make sure that anything in that area of wasteland that could help them to establish what happened to little Daniel was found. And now yesterday, as you say, or today I should say, as you say, a post-mortem examination is going to be carried out. Yesterday, state pathologists Dr. Heidi Ockers and Yvonne McCartney attended the scene. They will be involved in the post-mortem examination, as we understand. Now, after they arrived at the scene late last night, then there was the removal of the remains believed to be those of Daniel. That is a very emotional moment for people in Donabate who have gone through this over the last number of weeks since he was declared missing. That was driven home, the tragedy of this situation, of course, by the naming of Daniel by Gardaí, the release of the photo, and then the release of photos to the journal.ie by Daniel's foster family.
So these are pictures of the young lad when he was very, very young. He was beautiful. And like I said earlier on, the foster family took these photographs and have supplied these photographs, which is great. So people can actually see the child, because the mother, I'm pretty sure, is not releasing any photographs, and the father is in Brazil. So these are pictures that were released by the foster parents. And I understand that they are they're devastated about what they found out, because obviously whenever the child was taken back off them, put into the hands of Tusla, and then went back with the birth parents, the so-called natural parents, they maybe, I'm not sure how the system works, but they wouldn't have had a lot of contact with the child after that. So they looked after him, they took the photographs, and they've supplied them, which we're looking at right now.
Showing a smiling and happy little boy, and such really driving home to people what a tragedy it was. So people were continuing to come over the course of yesterday, even into the night, leaving flowers and other tributes as well. With regards, though, to where the investigation goes from here, there is a note of caution being sounded by some people involved in the investigation with regards to the post-mortem, because only partial remains were found. And
now, notice what he just said there. I'm going to pause that. That's the one thing that I took out of this news clip. He said only partial remains were found. Now, I'm just thinking out loud here, but if the mother and father, or whoever it was, took that child to the burial site, which was a piece of open ground in a shallow grave, and buried the child wherever it was that they buried him, it's, I'm just saying that unless the child was not intact, I'm trying to figure out why there's partial remains. I'm not saying, I'm just thinking out loud here. Okay, I'm just thinking out loud. And maybe nature separated some parts of the body. I don't know, time and the elements, but if something is put underground and covered in earth and the site is not disturbed, it's very strange that only partial remains were found. So if that's my one takeaway from this news clip, is the mentioning of partial remains, and some other hypotheses that other people have came up with to do with this may well be, it may well fall into what their line of thinking is. okay, what their line of thinking is.
Because Daniel was such a small boy, because he was buried in a wasteland for 4 years under the elements, there is a fear that it may not be as conclusive as could be hoped. So that is something which is worth bearing in mind. But the investigation is going to move forward from here. Interviews are going to be taking place. Of course, there has been the cooperation thus far from both of Daniel's parents, both in person and remotely. Of course, his father not currently in the country, but they are trying, of course, to establish where this investigation does go from here. If the post-mortem goes well and it is provided conclusive, they could establish whether or not Daniel died in his sleep through natural causes, whether it was an accidental death or whether there was something else at play. So inquiries, though, are also continuing around the town of Donabate, particularly around the Gallery apartments where Daniel lived from 2017 over the course of 2019 and beyond is when they're focusing their investigations there. They're hoping, Gardaí are, that the release of photographs over the last number of days may help people to refresh their memories, and that they may bring forward some information which could be very useful to this investigation.
Good afternoon. A post-mortem.
So that's the news report there that was published up there today by Virgin News, and a lot of you have left comments there in the live chat in and around this story. I'm noticing, just highlight this one here, Robert Bell. Robert, thank you for your comment, by the way. Hi Rick, how are things with you? Hope you're keeping well. Good to see you live. Yeah, I am keeping well, thank you. I'm just doing this live stream to focus in on this one particular story, so rather than it being a general one, I'm focusing in on this story plus several other things that have made the news this week with regards to, in my opinion, neglect, child neglect by the Irish state, resulting in death, resulting in missing children, resulting in disappearances, in this case, that have went underway for, or been ongoing for years. And also rightly so, some of the people are commenting here that no matter what happened, whether this was foul play or not, the fact is that the parents, or one of the parents at least, was trying to claim benefits for said child that triggered this in the first place. So at the very, very least, there's some kind of, I would say there's some kind of fraudulent activity. I'm going to say alleged fraudulent activity because, you know, I'm trying to keep myself right here, but you can put 2 and 2 together and get 4 pretty easily, I would say. So let me know what you think here below. And of course, the father, who is in Brazil, is not showing any signs of coming back to assist Garda Síochána with their investigations. Someone has said, hey, just tuned in, did they find the remains? Yes, the remains have been found, and the post-mortem is currently underway to establish a cause of death. The remains were found in a shallow grave on a piece of open ground after weeks worth of searching and digging and excavation and bringing in specialist dogs on one thing and another. So yes, the remains have actually been found. Goat Audit says it doesn't matter why the boy is there, it's who put him there. That's a fair point also, and I think really that's what it's going to boil down to. I don't think it's going to be under any dispute, because obviously the mother took or assisted in bringing to the area that the child was buried in. So I don't think it's a case of who put the child there. It's a case of why they put him there. There's talk of, oh, he might have died in his sleep. They panicked. It was a mental health thing or a cry for help, and they didn't know what to do. So they went and buried. All very, very, very bizarre. All very, very bizarre. So that's that. Now, the reaction from some of I would call it faux reaction. It's a fake reaction. It's a pseudo reaction to what's being said. And I actually just highlighted this comment here, but I didn't quite get to read it. Keep spreading awareness and shining a light where our false politicians fail to do so. Well, that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so share this live stream. I think you can cut and paste the link and send it out now. It'll finish, you know, shortly, so people may not get to catch it live, but it will be uploaded onto my page on the live tabs, and I'll put a proper thumbnail on it. So if you've come in halfway through this live stream, or you've missed this live stream, or you would like to share this out with other people, then please cut and paste the link and drop it into WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, share it, send it on email, do whatever you want with it, or use it if you have your own channels and you want to cut and paste the links or chop it up and use it as your own content. You're free to do that also. So please, share this out, use it yourself. Once I upload it, you can do whatever you want with it. You're free to do so. Finola says, if the child was 7, coming up to Holy Communion age, a very long time of him not being schooled. Indeed, the child was completely neglected and disappeared for such a long time. Casey, Kat, thank you very much, Casey, for the support. Also, do we know when the father left the country? Would be interesting to know. As far as I know, the father left the country a long time ago. The father split with the mother. I believe he's in Brazil at the minute. The mother was of African descent. So whether or not he was a Brazilian or not, I'm not sure about that. But he is in Brazil at the minute because he has been helping Garda Síochána with their investigations. So hopefully that answers your questions. It rings big alarm bells that social welfare gets sought. Absolutely disgusting. Something very, very wrong in this country. Indeed. This stinks to high heavens, I think is the correct expression to use here. So that's why I'm saying I'm trying to highlight as much of this and compact as much of this together in this little live stream as I can. Now let's move across to some of the comments that were made by Simon Harris, pretending that he cares, pretending that he's all cut up about this. He doesn't give a damn. And also Micheál Martin in between pimping Jim Gavin as the future president of Ireland and sucking on ice creams and getting photo opportunities with some people that he's loved by, one or two. He has a few words to say for it as well. Just one last comment before I play those videos. Come on in, bro, says, thanks, Rick. It's just around the corner from me. It's been awful having to drive past every other day. Again, the footy club, it's right opposite the entrance. Well, you can testify to this as much as anyone can. This is literally right on your doorstep. And that's the thing about these events that are happening now. If I throw up an event or I throw up an incident or I throw up some terrible happening anywhere in Ireland, someone will probably be listening to it going, hey, that's my place, or I'm from there, I know that street, or I know that area. So thank you for sharing that little bit of information with us there. So let's jump to Harris, the weasel, and listen to his, in my opinion, fake, shallow words of concern.
Can I just begin today by expressing the great shock and sadness that I know we're all feeling as a country about the deeply tragic and upsetting scene unfolding in Donabate. We've been gripped as a country for weeks by the search for this missing little boy, and until today we did not know his name, but we do know it now. His name was Daniel. Until today we'd not seen his face, but now the image of this beautiful little boy is seared in our consciousness.
What a liar. The image of this beautiful little boy is seared in our consciousness. Do you really think that that child's face is seared in his head? Do you really believe that? Do you really believe he's been gripped? The only thing that grips Harris is what Harris is doing. The only thing that grips Harris, I believe, is to troll and gaslight the Irish people. The only thing that grips Harris is to further Harris. That's the only thing Harris is interested in. It's the only thing he's interested in. Can't even say the boy's surname either, by the way. And yes, someone has said, Declan has said, I've muted. I'm hoping that's because of Simon Harris rather than me. There's only another few seconds. And this is interesting, actually. People are starting to genuinely say this. Cheeky Chappy says, hard to stomach even listening to that man. This is true. Can't stand that evil little creature. This is true. The amount of disgust that people have for this person is off the scale. Look at the way he's even talking. Look at that little pause. The way he's talking down like this out of the top of his head. If you've ever seen Ted Bundy being interviewed, if you've ever seen Ted Bundy being interviewed, his mannerisms are not unlike Simon Harris's. I'm just saying. His mannerisms are not unlike Simon Harris's.
And I know there's a Garda investigation ongoing into both the scene and the circumstances that has to be allowed do its work. But I think it's fair to say this is a moment of significant public distress and concern, and the state processes must be thorough and robust in establishing all the facts.
Yeah, what the hell does he care about establishing the facts and robustness? I'm actually very surprised. Do you know what surprises me most about the Simon Harris speech? What surprises me most about the Simon Harris speech is he doesn't mention Gaza. He doesn't mention Palestine. And whether or not you're for or against that is neither here nor there. I'm just saying that on every opportunity that he has, he brings it in. He was on celebrating the fact that he's brought over a second tranche of Palestinian students to study in Ireland at various universities. He's very happy about that. He's very encouraged about that. But I mean, he didn't even have the brass neck on him when he's trying to fake the solemnity behind this story here tonight. So that's Harris. Let's hear what Martin has to say at the ploughing competition. This was just before or after he had that ice cream. And remember, this is Simon Harris, or sorry, Micheál Martin, either just before or just after he's about to make this very impassioned speech about how cut up he is and how devastated he is about the what happened to this young lad, Daniel. Listen to him trying his best to appear concerned and empathetic.
Ago.
Wrong one. That's Patter. We'll get to him in a minute.
Shocking and very, very sad that the remains of a young boy have been discovered yesterday. To the family, to the community, and I think wider society are deeply saddened, and particularly when the photographs emerged which put a person and an identity on to what was prior to that. We didn't realise who the boy was, or and so forth. So I think we have to await further investigations by the Gardaí and by others into the background here.
Background here, Micheál, let me save you a lot of time. Background is child was neglected. Background is child slipped through the net or wasn't even considered for at least 4 years. Background is child, we wouldn't even be talking about this if mother hadn't have made a fraudulent claim for benefits, allegedly. That's the background. Background is child was buried on an open piece of ground and left underground for years. Father is in Brazil. That's the background, Micheál. So what are you going to do about it in between your ice cream cones?
And then inform us in terms of how we take this forward, and also in terms of looking at our systems. To the best of my knowledge, the child was not in care at the particular time that the child went missing. So there are issues that we will examine, but I think we have to do it on an evidence-based and informed manner. But it's very, very sad. It is deeply, deeply shocking.
So there you go. Very, very sad. Deeply, deeply shocking. We're all in mourning. It's child's face burned in our consciousness. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think anybody's buying any of this. And there's a lot of people sitting listening to this live at the minute. And nobody's convinced. Nobody's convinced that these people care. And not just about this young lad, Daniel. Not just about him. But they don't care, period. Now, I want to show a video clip here, and I'm going to wrap this up soon. This is Pater Tobin from Into. Some people think he's good. Some people think he's bad. Some people think he's ugly, like the old Clint Eastwood Western trilogy. But he is coming out with some points here, and he's trying to hold Harris's feet to the fire anyway, at least in regards to failings in Tusla and failings in child healthcare provision, leading to agony for some children and mothers making impassioned pleas for their children to access healthcare. So this is what Pater has to say. And again, we'll hear him out and then you can give me your thoughts and opinions on that.
Since I raised the case of Harvey Sharrett with the then Taoiseach in the Dáil, in relation to making sure that Harvey got the necessary healthcare that he needed and that the family would meet with the Taoiseach at the time. And as far as I understand, at this moment, that meeting hasn't happened yet, which is quite incredible. And also we had the confrontation between the Taoiseach and a citizen, Antoinette Burke, there at the Fianna Fáil Thinking in Cork which shockingly she had to tell the story of her own daughter who was denied life-changing surgery so many years ago, 50.
So again, for the benefit of people that maybe aren't familiar with these stories, young Harvey had been waiting for years and years and years for surgery to alleviate his suffering and prolong his life, that he was suffering from scoliosis, and he died during the summer. Simon Harris was supposed to meet with the parents or get together with them after the child died. Now, the child died back in July. It's now September. It's been 2 months and he still has yet to meet them. Now, tonight, I understand the parents are going on to the Late Late Show. I would not advise anyone normally to watch the Late Late Show. And in fact, I wouldn't even advise you to watch it when it's screened. But certainly a platform will be given to those parents. Although having said that, with it being RTE, it's could go either way when it comes to trying to, it could either be an expose or it could be damage limitation via RTE here tonight. But either way, the parents are going to have an opportunity, at least the mother, probably the father too, are going to have an opportunity to get on there to explain what happened to their child. Also, Antoinette Burke, her daughter had been waiting 15 years for surgery. The mother accosted or doorstepped, as they say, Micheál Martin this week and pleaded with him to help her daughter. And he sat and he hardly even made eye contact with her. It was an absolute disgrace. But apparently that has resulted in a little bit of action going on there. There's a lovely message from Nikki Cyprus. I believe these poor children are with the Lord Jesus Christ. They are. Take some comfort in that. Suffer little children to come unto him and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. So thank you for that reference, Nikki. Appreciate it. Let's hear what else Potter has to say here.
15 years ago, and it's still in need of serious health care. And one of the big frustrations I felt in relation to that exchange was that the Taoiseach stated that many of the reasons why operations are cancelled or postponed or don't happen is because of clinical decisions, when we know that that's actually not true. Many people are coming to us to say that the operation date has been given, that the staff are prepared, that the theatre is available, that the surgeon is there. But what happens is maybe the aftercare is not in place and therefore the surgery can't happen. We know that there has been 9 reports written about the dysfunction that's happening in CHI at the moment, and the recommendations of those 9 reports simply have not been put into place. We will be pushing the issue of child welfare strongly in the next Dáil term here in Leinster House, and we will stick to our promise to make sure that there is a motion of no confidence in the Taoiseach when we get an opportunity in the Dáil.
Well, if nothing else comes out of this, if Potter decides to push for that motion of no confidence in Simon Harris, well then well and good. But to be honest with you, is it just going to be some kind of lip service? Because look at the farce that was the call of no confidence in Verona Murphy earlier on this year, and she still has her job. If that incompetent can remain in situ, well then surely that weasel, Micheál Martin, will be no different. So we could fill many hours talking about this, but I wanted to focus in on that story involving that young boy Daniel, who has his remains have been found in Donabate in Dublin, and also other cases that are still fresh open wounds for the parents, in the case of one child at least that has died in terms of young Harvey, and then of course other mothers and fathers of children who are still awaiting surgery to protect them from, or not to protect them, to alleviate their suffering from many horrible conditions. Just as we wrap this one up, Noel Patton, thank you, Noel. Hi from Letterkenny. Hi, you, Noel. Thank you for joining the stream. Beats GGA for Gaza of his former colleagues. I think you're maybe talking about I'm not sure you're talking about there actually, but let's show the content anyway. RTE should be dissolved. Imagine we actually pay for our propaganda. I mean, there's an argument to be made there for a nationwide push to boycott that. I don't know how it works, but with the BBC, we don't have to legally pay for a BBC license. I cancelled mine many, many years ago. All you have to do is say you don't watch live TV and live streaming and whatnot, and you don't need it. Many people aren't aware that. You can just cancel it. It's not against the law and it's not illegal to cancel your BBC license, but for RTE, I believe it's different. John, thank you, John, for joining. You've just caught the tail end of this here, but you can go back and watch the replay. I'll upload it straight onto YouTube. Lessons will be learned going forward. Yeah, this is the most heinous of all get out of jail free cards that can be played. Lessons will be learned from this going forward about Harvey, about young Daniel, about Antoinette Burke's daughter, about the 42,000 cases that Tusla are currently going to reopen and evaluate that happened after the so-called COVID pandemic. So, you know, you're getting this here, there, and you're getting it everywhere. I don't think RT is the big scary shark in the water. Well, certainly not scary to me. Cheeky Chappy said you've cancelled your license as well. Good move. RT is lousy. Anyway, they haven't updated their shows in years. Yeah, why would you watch RT when you could be watching me? Come on, give me a break here. So it's easily enough to do. I'm going to wrap this one up. I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone that has tuned in here. This was completely unplanned. I just felt like doing this. Maybe I'll do more of these impromptu live streams, or maybe not, but I just felt, you know, let's do it. Let's get your input on this and see what you guys have to think. So the comments have been coming in thick and fast. If you do watch the replay for this, you can click on the tab that'll say live comments. It'll pop open a side tab. You can go back over your own comments if you want to revisit them. And I know some people talk amongst themselves in the live chat, which is great also. So share the content, cut and paste the link. Look out for it when it gets uploaded later. Let people know what's going on. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And for now, anyway, I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, over and out.